Welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Anders Virtual CFO Services team from all across the United States. I'm John Scott, and in each episode, we'll shine a light on the financial side of the legal world, turning law firm numbers into impact-driven stories. From taxes and profitability to practice growth and leadership, we sit down with law firm innovators who are shaping the future of the profession. Let's dive in, right here on Judicial Dollars and Cents.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Judicial Dollars and Cents, the podcast where we help law firms build stronger firms, improve financial performance, and create firms that are both more profitable and more valuable. I'm your host, Cagney Furbit, with Anders Virtual CFO for Law Firms. Today's guest has taken a very different approach to practicing law. Rather than simply helping clients solve legal problems, he focuses on helping entrepreneurs build companies that are truly investable businesses that can attract capital, scale successfully, and ultimately create long-term value. Our guest is Michal Melfi, founder of Mavacy, a business law and strategic advisory firm serving entrepreneurs, growth companies, investors, and increasingly law firms looking at succession, mergers, and innovative business models. Michal practices spans corporate law, fundraising, tax planning, mergers and acquisitions, intellectual property, and strategic business advising. Before becoming a full-time attorney, he himself was an entrepreneur, serving as founder, COO, and general counsel of multimedia company that creates marketing campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. This operating experience continues to shape how he advises clients today. Michal is also the author of 4 books, a frequent national speaker, and the founder of Investable Mastermind, a community dedicated to helping entrepreneurs build businesses worthy of investment and long-term success. Michal, welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, your story fascinates me. I think the biggest piece that is the most compelling piece is that you didn't start as a lawyer, right? We started kind of more as that entrepreneur. So please give us a little bit of background of where you started, how did you become a lawyer, and how those worlds collided.
Yeah, Steve Jobs has a quote that is, "You can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back." And you'll probably hear multiple times I referenced that in our conversation today. I started out getting a JD MBA, kind of knowing I wanted to be a general counsel, and knew that was kind of always where my calling was if I was going to do legal related stuff. And along the way, I always did entrepreneurial things. When I got started, saying you had a family office wasn't cool. Venture capital wasn't the buzzword it is today. You weren't being an entrepreneur. It wasn't what you set out to do when you graduated from school. So a lot of the things that I was doing back then, they were different. They were pioneering. They were a little bit of a maverick. And I think I've always kind of had that kind of approach. And I've been a serial entrepreneur, having been involved in dozens and dozens of companies, either as an investor, as a founder, or operating on the leadership team to really grow those companies. And not all of them turned into something great. Many of them don't. But I think that's where really, as I've gone through my journey, those learning lessons that I've had along the way is what has allowed me to really refine my skills as a general counsel, as I'm able to serve high net worth individuals, family offices, and privately held businesses. And so I think it's been that interesting one part lawyer hat, one part entrepreneur spirit, serial entrepreneur hat that has really led to that kind of unique, what shaped me today.
Absolutely. And do you think that your clients kind of view you differently for being able to have both of those? That's like, how do you feel like that has helped with your client relationships?
Yeah, it's interesting. A younger version of myself used to be offended when someone said, "Well, you're not like a typical lawyer." So I took it to mean, well, gosh, I'm not as smart as them or something.
Right.
But what I come to find out is that people will often say, "You should talk to Michal. He's not a traditional lawyer," or "You'll talk to Michal because I think he fits what you're looking for." Because what I do isn't a fit for everyone. But I think for when it is. It is definitely a fit, and the glove fits for people when they meet myself and the team and what we do for individuals, what we do for their families, what we do for their businesses, and how we work. And it's kind of, it resonates because at the end of the day, sometimes certain personalities or certain spirits, that entrepreneur spirit is just going to be looking for something that it's not that everyone else can't give to them. It's just, you understand, it's kind of like speaking a different language. That's one thing that I think is really interesting, is that if you look at what I do, I kind of speak a different language. I can speak legal when I need to. I can speak finance when I need to. I can speak strategy when I need to. I can speak operations when I need to. I even speak HR, unfortunately, when I need to. But it's kind of having been able to have worn all those hats in my own journey that
Yeah.
allows me to bring that and shape my conversations and my strategies when I have that. So it's often not about the document or the
Hmm.
transaction, but it's
Hmm.
much more about the relationship and the enterprise value and the value we're creating.
Yeah. And do you feel like with a lot of your clients, you end up speaking kind of down multiple of those lanes? It's not, it's
Yeah.
fairly very rare that it's just the legal speak that you need to talk about,
Yeah.
but maybe it's the strategic and a little bit of legal. You're pulling in kind of all the avenues there.
Yeah. You do the thing about unique abilities. I think one thing I'm really good at is taking really complex situations and simplifying them. Because
Mm.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
someone who's looking for an outcome or result, someone who owns a business is busy. How do we
Mhm.
get them the information they need? How do we give them an answer they need as
Yep.
quick as possible in a way that allows them to make a business decision on their side so they can move forward because they got a bunch of other things to do today. And
Yeah.
so the quicker that we can help them to solve their questions, get the knowledge they need to them, the quicker they can move forward with whatever their project or their transaction or their business is.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find so for a client that, an entrepreneur, a new founder or owner of a company out there that thinks that they need legal help, do you think that it's usually sometimes they may just need legal help, right? But is it that they probably just need a little bit of strategic help first and then having that legal aspect on the back end is just helpful?
Yeah. I got to correct you on one thing.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily even think they need legal help, right? So it starts like, well, I already have AI, or I already know this, or I have a
Sure.
document I use for a similar transaction. It's not a knock or anything, but it's the lawyer is not the first person that most
Sure.
people call. I like to think that a lot of my clients, I am one of the first calls, but I built that relationship and that trust and that value.
Yeah.
But I think when you think about it's first, hey, I need to call my lawyer. That's the first step,
Yeah.
right? And realizing the value that a good lawyer can bring to you. Because
Mhm.
otherwise, it's looked at, well, this just is an expense to me. They're not going to give me the answer I want, and they're going to take forever to turn around the document, whatever
Yep.
preconceived notion you have of sending stuff to your lawyer. But those people who do want to call their lawyer, they're coming and they're saying, hey, they'll say, I want a document. They want a good document. They want a high quality legal product. That's what
Mhm.
you got to deliver to them. That's table stakes these days.
Yep.
Once I've delivered that, where's the value coming from? The value is coming because I have industry experience. I have specific transaction experience. I understand the holistic approach. I can say, yes, this document's important, but did we think about this, this, and this?
Right.
And I recently wrote an article about one of the general counsel's jobs is to risk mitigate and look at liability.
Mhm.
A contract drafter or a traditional corporate attorney that would be drafting for the document is drafting based on what side they're representing. It's
Mm.
not even about that sometimes. It's about where does the liability lie? How does this impact intellectual property? How does this impact employment? How does this impact a strategic decision we're going to make moving forward? All those things you need to be thinking about when you're saying, does this clause apply or what we should do with this clause? And
Right.
if you haven't had exposure to those areas, you don't even know to ask that question or to look for that situation.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's probably what you see, or we see in our space as well, of owners just almost not knowing what to look for on the front end.
Mm.
So that would be my next
Yeah.
question to you. What's something that you found? What are habits that you found with owners that kind of make them very successful? Like, what are the things that they're looking for on that front end, or what are things that they don't look for early enough and they find it kind of later on, and they should have identified it sooner?
As it relates to the business, as it relates to picking a lawyer, or what kinds of.
Yeah, anything that they just want to grow and scale their company on.
Yeah. So I think something is that I always say to people is that when someone shows you their true colors, believe them.
Mm.
A lot of us want to find the best in people or the best in a situation.
Yeah.
Or if we're a sales minded person, we're going to close every deal when we know statistically we're not going to. And
Right.
so there's a preconceived bias or a notion that we have to overcome. And I think it's really important that when that does happen, when someone does show you, you're getting a true view into what it is or who they are,
Yeah.
right? Because hindsight being 2020, we always sit back or armchair quarterback like, oh man, looking at it now, I totally saw that. Of course, that person wasn't right. Of course, this
Right.
deal wasn't right. Of course, you see all those things afterwards. But I would bet a lot of times those answers are on the front end, and I think that happens because of something that I believe in calling being investable. And be investable is a word I coined, but it's really about the idea that everyone comes to every conversation, every relationship, every situation in life with a series of attributes.
Mm.
Those attributes either make that situation, that conversation, that transaction more valuable, more impactful, more powerful, or it decreases from it and takes away from it. And if you think of each interaction, each document, each clause, each transaction, each situation, look and really say, did this create value along the way? Am I creating value in such a way that I
Yeah.
can ask the other party for something?
Mm.
That's so important. And so when you're building a business, when you're scaling a business, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
I say 60% of relationships end in divorce and 90% of businesses fail, just statistically speaking. But
Yep.
the odds are against us that things are going to go well.
Right.
If knowing that, your ability to critically think and discern is so much invaluable, because we're all spending something very important, resources of time, money, and energy. So
Mhm.
how do you mitigate your spend on resources while maximizing the output? And so that's how you really drive enterprise values, by being able to make good decisions like this around that. So I go back and just say, to answer your question, it's really about making sure you really, when something's happening and the answers are there, listen.
Right.
It just, that makes it so much easier. And that may be your lawyer. If your
Yeah.
lawyer told you don't do it or to think about this, they're not just saying that to just charge you time. It's because
Right.
they really truly have a conviction that's a concern you should have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought up your key for the investable piece, right? That was something that I found very interesting, from your article and your investable masterminds group and everything. Because what characteristics do you feel like are people that are investable? Like, what are those key characteristics that really make someone an investable person?
Yeah. So, I think every situation is different, like what relationship they're going into, what transaction they're going into.
Yeah.
I think when I look at, let's say, business, right? I think someone is going to definitely have to have a mindset, right? The mindset is so important. So whether they're always going into it and being a certain way, that the mindset and that attitude piece is such an important part of how they approach something. That's
Mhm.
just, they need to have that there. They typically need to demonstrate they have certain skills. What are the skills they have? What are the skills that they need to be able to demonstrate that they have to be able to use to excel? I think the other
Mhm.
part is going to be they have some knowledge. They're going to have some knowledge that understands what they're actually going into, how they're going into it. I'd say probably behind mindset, the second most important though is going to be that dedication, that
Yeah.
perseverance, that willingness to stick with it. Right. I was just telling someone yesterday, success is not fun. Success is
Mhm.
doing the same thing over and over and over again, better than the next person in line. And
Yeah.
so that requires dedication, that requires perseverance. And I think the other part is, I think this word's starting to get played out a little bit, but you got to have grit, you got to have hustle, you got to be willing to just get in there and make things happen. I'm obviously a big sports fan, and I always say you got to be hanging around the rim. Young people will say, how do I go do this? How do I go do that? I'm like, what business are you in? What are you trying to do? Well,
Yeah.
where do people who you want to be like hang out? Go there. Even if you
Yeah.
know how to get there, figure that out. That's the resourceful piece. You got to figure
Right.
that out.
Be
Um,
resourceful. Yeah.
yeah, and I think those are the kind of things that you're looking at. Again, every situation is a little bit different, but if you look at those four, those are kind of four things that I would say: that mindset piece, that ability to have that grit, that hustle, the ability to demonstrate you have the skills, the attributes to be able to do the job or show up for whatever it is you're doing.
Mhm.
And you have to know something about it, right? If you just
Yeah.
show up and say, "Oh," most people aren't willing to just pay someone to learn on the job. They're looking for you to create value. They're looking for you to teach them, not them teach you.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love that, you relate it to business here, but certainly anything in your personal life, that it's that same kind of concept that you would approach anything with in your own lives, and whether it's hobby or families or anything like that. So that's an amazing concept. I love that you have brought that to light here. Um, Within that, are you still with me?
And
Are we,
hope his phone didn't die.
are we still live?
Yeah, we should probably not be live.